This is your board game shortcut to Gwent. If you've played The Witcher, you already know Gwent. Maybe you faced the same challenge I did. I understood how to play, but not how to win. Now Gwent finally exists as a physical card game for 1 to 5 players. Though let's be honest, at its core it's a head-to-head duel. Whether you played Gwent before or you're totally new, you'll have the basics down in just a few minutes. And beyond simply knowing the rules, I'll also show you what makes it exciting, how to build your own deck and what to look out for. One quick note, the components I'm showing are from the German edition, but don't worry, nothing in this video requires you to read the German text. So let's start at the very beginning with the game setup. If you're new to Gwent and don't know it from The Witcher 3, I recommend using the game board for your first place. Once you're familiar with the flow, you can skip it to save space. That's what the separate scoreboard is for. Each player takes 2 strength markers and 2 gem counters. Place the gem counters on the 2 slots on your side of the scoring track. There are 5 factions to choose from, including Scoia'tael, Skellige and Nilfgaard. Each player picks one and takes that deck. Inside your faction deck, you'll find some cards that cannot start in your hand or in your main deck. Sort them out and place them nearby as your side deck. You'll likely need them during the game. You can simply start with the pre-constructed starter deck, marked with a white star in the lower left corner. However, I'd recommend watching the later chapter, Building Your Deck, before playing your very first match. Either way, you'll always choose exactly one leader card, marked by your faction symbol. Each leader comes with a powerful ability that you may only use once per game. The player aid cards have a permanent spot on the board for a reason. You'll definitely need them unless you've memorized every ability from the start. They also show your faction's special ability, which applies for the entire game. Shuffle your deck thoroughly and draw 10 cards into your hand. Unless a card effect says otherwise, these 10 cards will be your hand for the rest of the game. Place the remaining deck here with space for your discard pile next to it. Now take a close look at your 10 cards. If you'd like, you may discard up to 2 of them and draw the same number from your deck. And that's it, you're ready to play. A game of Gwent is played over a series of rounds, all using the same hand of cards you drew at the start. The starting player is chosen randomly with a coin flip. Whoever loses a round must remove 1 gem counter. As soon as a player loses both gems, the game ends and the opponent wins. In the case of a tie, both players lose a gem. This means a match lasts at least 2 and at most 3 rounds, with each round rarely taking more than a few minutes. On your turn, you have 3 options. First, play a card from your hand, applying its effect, if it has one, and adding its strength to the board. Second, use your leader ability. Or third option, pass, which ends the round for you while your opponent may continue taking turns until they also pass. When both players have passed, the round ends. At that point, all cards on the battlefield, including special and weather cards, are moved to their controller's discard pile. If neither player has yet won the game, the winner of the round begins the next one. Now let's take a closer look at the board, the battlefield and the different card types. Most of your faction's cards are unit cards. You can recognize them by the number in the top left corner. That's their base strength. There are 2 types of units, regular ones and heroes. Heroes are usually much stronger and are immune to many effects. Below the strength value, you'll see the unit's range, a sword, a bow or a catapult. You'll also find these symbols on the battlefield. Swords for close combat, bows for ranged combat and siege combat in the back. Depending on the range, you must place the card in the correct row, though some units give you a choice. There's no limit to how many cards you can place in a row. Below the range icon, you'll often find 1 or more abilities. Their explanations are shown on your player aids. Whenever you play a unit with an ability, you should pay close attention. Some of these effects can be game-changing. I'll come back to a few of them later when we look at deck construction. At the bottom is a text box that you should also read carefully. For example, if you play Geralt or Ciri, their master ability is linked to Roach, the horse. When you play a card, I recommend updating your strength immediately on the score track. With the number of cards in play and all the possible abilities, the strength total can get messy pretty quickly. The official rulebook suggests adding up the strength only at the end of each round. Both approaches have their pros and cons. And if you ever pass the 100 mark, simply flip your score marker over. In addition to units, there are also special cards. They don't have a strength value of their own, but instead come with abilities that can affect specific rows or even the entire battlefield. Weather cards aren't placed on the battlefield itself, but in the weather area. For example, Impenetrable Fog blocks the vision of all ranged units, both yours and your opponent's. The base strength of all affected units, including heroes, is set to 1. Any modifiers that increase unit strength are applied on top of that. More on this at the end of the chapter. So if you play a Commander's Horn, which doubles strength, those 1 strength units would become 2. Multiple weather cards can be active at the same time, covering the battlefield in misery. However, Clear Weather cancels all negative weather effects and discards all weather cards in play. Besides weather, there are several other special cards. These are usually played directly into the combat row they affect. The Commander's Horn doubles the strength of all units in the row where it's placed. Only 1 horn can be active per row, so it's best to put it at the edge of a row and avoid accidentally playing a second one there. Back in The Witcher 3, the Decoy was a bit of a mystery for me, so let's take a closer look at why it's useful. The Decoy lets you replace one of your own regular units, not heroes, on the battlefield, and return that unit to your hand. There are several reasons why keeping a Decoy in reserve can be valuable. For example, you could bait your opponent into committing a powerful card, forcing them to spend more of their hand early. Then you play the Decoy, take your strong card back, and maybe even following up with a weather card that cripples the row where your opponent is strongest. Or if you realize you can't win the current round, the Decoy gives you a way to save at least 1 powerful card for the next one. The Scorch can burn you just as easily as your opponent. When played, it destroys the strongest unit on the battlefield, excluding heroes. That might well include one of your own units if you're not careful, especially if you've boosted it with effects like Commander's Horn. If multiple units share the highest strength, they are all discarded, and after resolving its effect, the Scorch card itself is also discarded. Spies aren't special cards, they are units, often with a strength of 0. When you play a spy, it doesn't go to your side of the battlefield, but to your opponent's. Some spies do have strength, and that strength then counts against you. So why would you ever do that? The simple answer: whenever you play a spy, you get to draw 2 cards from your deck. Since cards in hand are scarce, spies are extremely valuable. For your opponent, the spy is treated just like any other of their unit cards. A few cards come with the summon ability. This always refers to cards that you had to sort out before the match. They can't start in your hand or your main deck, but instead wait in your side deck. The summon effect means that as soon as the original card is discarded, for example at the end of a round, it is replaced by the corresponding card from the side deck. Sometimes multiple effects apply to the same units. Earlier I mentioned weather cards and Commander's Horn as examples. If you're unsure, there's a fixed order for resolving effects when calculating strength. Apply any weather effect, setting the strength to 1. Apply Tight Bond, multiplying strength based on the number of matching units. Apply Moral Boost, so +1 strength. Finally, apply Commander's Horn, doubling the current value. There are other abilities as well, but the best way to learn them is simply by playing and keeping an eye on your 8 cards. Before you even start playing, let's talk about deck construction. Even if you just want to try the pre-constructed starter deck, it's worth knowing the basics. For this guide, we'll include the stricter rules of the advanced game, since they help keep the very different factions balanced. As in the standard rules, your deck must include exactly 1 leader card. You then need to choose at least 22 unit cards from your stack. Remember, heroes also count as units. These are the cards with a strength value in the top left corner. Some unit cards aren't allowed in your hand or your main deck. Those go into your side deck. Special cards are identified by the effect icons. You may include up to 5 special cards in your deck in the advanced game and up to 10 in the standard game. Any extras are set aside. There are a few further restrictions in the advanced variant. A maximum of 2 spy cards and 2 medics. Set aside any extras here as well. Skellige doesn't have more anyway, while Northern Realms has as many as 4 spies. In total, the combined strength of all unit cards in your deck cannot exceed 130 in the advanced game. In the standard rules, aside from the leader and the 10 allowed special cards, you could simply use almost the entire faction stack as your deck. But why is that not the best idea? It comes down to probability. No matter which variant you play, you'll only draw 10 cards into your hand, and apart from certain abilities, those are the only cards you'll have for the whole game. Many cards only show their true power in combination with others. To really understand Gwent and your chosen faction, you should take the time to go through the entire stack and recognize how these combinations work. Here, for example, you can see Skellige card sets that clearly belong together, which is implied by effect icons or card text. Let's have a look at a card like this. At first glance, it looks like a normal, not especially strong unit. What makes it special is the master icon. Unless otherwise specified, for example Geralt or Ciri with Roach, master means that when you play this card, you immediately search both your hand and your deck with the same name and play them as well. At least in the German version, the text says from hand or deck, which can be misleading. The actual rule as shown on the 8 cards and in the rulebook is from hand and deck. So when you play this one unit, you're really bringing out a whole group, as long as you included them all in your deck at the start. A single master card on its own is fairly weak, but with a proper deck construction it can decide the game. For Skellige there are 2 such sets. Always make sure you include only complete sets in your deck. The heroine Ceres also has the master icon. When played, she brings all 3 shield maidens into play at once. The shield maidens themselves have the tight bond symbol. With Ceres plus the 3 shield maidens, your opponent is in serious trouble. Tight bond works like this. A shield maiden has a base strength of 4. You then count how many copies of that same card with the tight bond icon are on the battlefield. In our case, 3. That means each shield maiden's strength is tripled, turning 4 into 12. And of course that applies to all 3, giving you 36 strength in total. Plus Ceres herself on top for a massive 46 strength in a single clever play from a carefully built deck. These 2 effects, Master and Tight Bond, appear in every faction, but each faction also has its own unique traits. For Skellige, one example are the relatively weak Berserkers, which can transform into powerful bears from your side deck through the effect of Madrome. A moment ago, the 3 Berserkers together were worth only 6 strength. With Madrome Blade, they suddenly become worth 24. The bears are already much stronger on their own than the Berserkers. But here's the kicker. All 3 carry the tight bond symbol, and you already know what that means. So those 3 Berserkers, which started at 3 × 2 strength, transform into wild cards with 3 × 8 strength. Altogether, that's a jump from 18 to 72. Of course, to pull this off, you need both the Madrome cards and the Berserkers in your deck. And you also have to draw them into your hand. If your deck has 40 cards, the odds are slim. But if you're running the minimum of 22 unit cards, the chances are already much better. I hope these examples make it clear why it's important to get to know your chosen faction first. I strongly recommend reading through and sorting all the cards in your faction to see clearly which ones belong together as sets in a deck. And that's it. I hope this guide made Gwent easy and fun to pick up. This is still a small young channel and your early support really helps me create more videos like this and keep the project growing. So if you enjoyed this, consider subscribing, liking or leaving a comment. And for fellow Witcher fans, I've also covered Witcher Old World with more expansions to come. Thanks for watching and have a great time with Gwent. Often with the strength of 0. Often with the strength of 0. Einfach überall ein TH hinsetzen, dann geht's auch.